d4, knight f6, knight f3, d5, e3, c5, knight b d2, g6, d takes c5, bishop g7, c3, castle kingside, b4, knight f d7, bishop b2, b6, c takes b6, a5, b5, a4, rook b1, a3, bishop a1, knight takes b6, bishop e2, bishop f5, rook c1, knight a4, castle kingside, knight d7, knight b3, knight d b6, knight b d4, bishop d7, queen b3, knight c5, queen b4, queen c7, knight c6, queen d6, queen f4, queen takes f4, e takes f4, bishop takes c6, b takes c6, rook f c8, c4, bishop takes a1, rook takes a1, knight takes c4, bishop takes c4, d takes c4, rook a c1, rook a4, knight e5, knight d3, knight takes d3, c takes d3, rook f d1, rook d4, g3, rook d6, rook d2, king g7, rook c3, rook c takes c6, rook takes c6, rook takes c6, rook takes d3, rook a6, king g2, king f6, rook e3, h6, g4, g5, f takes g5, check, h takes g5, king g3, rook a4, h4, g takes h4, check, king takes h4, e6, king g3, king g5, f3, f5, rook takes e6, f takes g4, rook e5, check, king f6, f4, rook c4, rook a5, rook c1, King takes g4. Rook g1 check. King f3. Rook f1 check. King g3. Rook g1 check. King f2. Rook b1. Rook takes a3. King f5. Rook a4. Rook c1. King e3. Rook c3 check. King d4. Rook f3. King c5. Rook f2. a3. Rook f3. Rook a8. King e6. Rook a4. King f5. Rook a7. King e6. a4. Rook takes f4. a5. Rook f1. Rook h7. Rook c1 check. King b6. King d6. Rook h6 check. King d7. King b7. Rook c7 check. King b6. Rook c1. Rook h7 check. King c8. Rook h8 check. King d7. a6. Rook b1 check. King a7. King c7. Rook b8. Rook takes b8.